And welcome back to the Dan Maskell Tennis Centre here at Loughborough University. It's finals day in week 3 of the UK Pro League, and we already have seen our first winner of the day. Fantastic performance from Elise Money to come through in 2 sets against Emily Appleton, who of course was the winner in week 1 and 2. So sweet revenge for Elise after losing the final in week 2, but of course she did beat Appleton during the group stage this week, and she's confirmed her superiority for now at least. Real shame that we didn't have a women's third place playoff because of the injury sustained by Sonia Cartel in her semi-final against Emily yesterday, so Freya Christie was awarded a walkover. Still to come, not before 2:30, it's going to be sometime after that, the men's final featuring Anton Matusevic and Henry Patton. But right now, it's the battle for third place in the men's. George Houghton up against Julian Cash. They are waiting over my shoulder behind that dark screen, and of course, it's a really big moment for both men. Julian Cash in particular, who caught the eye. He had a big match yesterday in the semi-finals. He's got a big game. He's an impressive performer of that, there's absolutely no doubt. He's 24 years of age, the British number 40, comes from Brighton, was junior national champion in 2012, the British number 1 junior in 2014. He competed twice at Junior Wimbledon, had a wonderful US college career where he was number 1 in doubles and number 16 in singles as well. This is his first appearance of the year at the UK Pro League. Away from the court, I'm reliably informed that he loves darts and golf. He's a Brighton supporter as well, and he specialises in karaoke, singing One Direction songs. This is his opponent, George Houghton, 22, comes from Guildford. He studied sport and exercise science at Loughborough and coaches here now as well as playing. 6th in week 1, 7th in week 2. This obviously is his best run, and as Anton Matusevic discovered yesterday, he can give the best a real test. He's a dog lover with a poodle called Daisy. He's also a golf fan. Can he prove to be the master in this one? Well, Jenny Drummond is alongside me to answer that question. Do you think he is going to be the master today?
I can't believe you're asking me that when they're standing literally right behind me as Julian.
Well, I was going to say he wasn't listening to you. He's just giving you a big smile. Julian, focus on the match, please. We may say things that you don't like.
No, exactly. I mean, this is set to be a really great match. Both guys lost out narrowly yesterday. A couple of fantastic matches. Julian playing one of his very good friends, Henry Patton, who's in the final later on. Interestingly, it was Julian Cash who didn't face a break point in his serve, but Patton came through in both of those tie breaks. And then George Houghton, well, what a performance he put on against Anton Matusevic. I mean, I felt sorry for the tennis balls in that match because it was some hard hitting. But still, they've got to have got over those losses from yesterday and one more match to play today.
Yeah, and actually the whole essence of this week has been the battling, ferocious qualities that are required if you're to sustain yourself, to get enough victories to get through to the weekend, and then find the strength and belief to actually win matches. And as you say yesterday, both these guys fought tooth and nail, and you had to have a degree of sympathy for both that they ended up losing, didn't you? Oh,
absolutely. I mean, to be fair to George, when he came off, he had a big smile on his face because he'd played some wonderful tennis against Anton Matusevic, who was the favourite to win that match. But it was a bit different for Julian because he did have chances to win. He had 11 breakpoint chances and didn't manage to take any of them. So he probably felt a bit more hard done by in that match by not coming through. But as we said, he has to put it behind him and one more to play because he'd certainly like to finish in 3rd place rather than 4th.
Yeah, you're standing in a precarious position now that Julian knows that you might have been saying something untoward about him. You better be on your guard. And while Jenny looks out of the corner of her eye at what Mr. Cash is up to in his warm-up, we will learn a little more about it.
Julian Cash, and I'm 24 years old. Probably winning round in main draw Wimbledon in the juniors. Toughest opponent I face, probably Alexander Zverev. That's a tough one. Jimmy Connors. Always like to get my stuff ready, things like that, and just be prepared. But nothing too out there, just getting the bag ready and all those small things like that. I have a set playlist that I listen to, and it changes from time to time, but it's all like quite upbeat, kind of dance music, I suppose, to get me a little bit fired up. Post-match meal, lots of carbs, so anything like pizza, pasta, rice, get some protein in there with some meat. Yeah, pretty basic, nothing too elegant. That it's an individual sport, you know, it's all down to you, and it's kind of one against the other, always fighting to try and get that win and like problem solving.
Yeah, it is mano against mano. You'll have noticed his tennis technician's t-shirt during that interval. He's in business with Billy Harris. What can you tell us about that, Jenny?
He is indeed. They've been in business together for a while, and basically they offer a service where they can offer up-and-coming tennis players advice on nutrition, on being a professional tennis player, and basically they pass on their wisdom. So they are very close indeed. Both Billy and Julian played earlier on this week too. So great to see the guys doing stuff off the court as well. Julian does coach too, so it's not just what's going on the court, it's off the court as well.
Well, we had so many talking points in that women's final. The break points, 4 from 21, eventually converted. The match points that came and went before Elise secured the title. What do you think the key to this match is going to be, Jenny?
Well, it's definitely going to be on the serve. Both guys have big serves. Houghton in particular yesterday served unbelievably well. Needs to do the same thing today. Julian Cash has barely faced a break point all week long. So it's certainly going to come down to the serve. There'll be mental and physical fatigue, but Julian Cash does lead the head-to-head 4-1, and he did beat him earlier on in the week as well, which is crucial. But Houghton looking to get his revenge.
Yeah, it's set up very nicely. Thank you, Jenny. Let's head up to the commentary box, guiding us through this one. It's Calvin once again alongside Gigi.
Thank you very much to Marcus and Jenny. It's delighted to be alongside Calvin Benton in the commentary box, and I think, Calvin, we're looking forward to this third and fourth place playoff.
Yeah, there'll be some real shot making in this match. Both Julian and George both like to go for their shots. Both aggressive players. Neither are out here for long rallies really. They practice with each other, so there'll be an interesting dynamic from that point of view. They're good mates, see each other every day. They'll play a lot of practice sets with each other, so they'll know who's favourite. Although I think it's probably a 50-50. Their backgrounds and their rankings suggest there's not much in these two at all. So yeah, it should be a really exciting match.
Yeah, they met in week 2, and it was George Houghton who came through. He beat Julian Cash 7-6, 6-4, and then on day 2 of this week, week 3, it was Julian Cash that got the better of his friend, coming through again in straight sets. It's a 6th meeting overall. It's 4-1 in favour of Julian Cash. Both of them are guaranteed their highest place finish at the UK Pro League, this being week 3. For Julian Cash, he didn't compete in week 1, made his debut in week 2 when he finished 9th. George Houghton, he was 6th in week 1, 7th in week 2, and he was awarded at the beginning of the tournament a wild card, being a former Loughborough student. This tournament taking place at the Dan Maskell Tennis Centre in Loughborough. So he's making the most of his time here. As you mentioned, the two of them, very good friends. When players speak to you, do they like playing friends or not?
I think it tends to be no, just because the dynamic kind of changes. And there's an extra dynamic here that they're calling their own lines. So you call your own lines against your mates as well. But so it's just a little bit uncomfortable, I think, and especially if you train with each other. But then again, in this tournament, most of these guys are mates anyway. So I think that kind of thing's happening all the time. They all see a lot of each other, and especially last summer while they were at the Pro Series, and over the last few weeks, they've seen even more of each other than they would in general. They travel, they tour with each other, and that kind of thing.
And so far, this will be a jinx now. Through the 3 weeks, the line calling's been pretty good.
Yeah,
hasn't it?
Yeah, they're all pretty steady with it.
It's George Houghton to get us underway in this third place playoff. And they are playing for, we talk about the points, we talk about the prize money. Whoever finishes third gets a cheque for £3,000. If cheques are still a thing, I don't know, do cheques still exist?
Virtual cheques.
And 12 points, and fourth it's £2,500. And 10 points. Remember, this is going towards trying to finish in the top 9 and therefore qualify for finals week in December.
always find this third, fourth playoffs a strange one. It's who reacts better to it, because both players have lost the day before, and normally when you've lost the day before in a sort of knockout type environment, you're out of the tournament. You don't have to bring yourself around to play the next day.
We were chatting about that it might depend on the expectation of
Yeah.
the player going in. So if these guys thought, well, it's win it or nothing for me, then maybe it would feel slightly different to, wow, if I finish third.
Yeah, and again, an extra sort of dynamic on that is that whoever wins this, or even the runner-up, will get more money than they've ever won for one event that they've played.
That's amazing. That's a clean hole for George Houghton to set out his stall. I think that's the other thing to remember. The money that is an offer for these players at a time when they haven't been able to get out and play and earn anything.
Yeah. I was just talking to one of the players in the locker room there, and asking them why they're going next, and he said he's going to play the next one of these just because he needs to build the money up so he can go on tour again. And that's a great thing about these tournaments. They're using the money to get on the tour and play more world ranking tournaments.
And they're getting so many matches if you are fully fit, and there have been a few withdrawals this week, but if you are fit, you're getting 7 matches in 7 days.
Yeah, I was talking to one of the national coaches at the LTA, and we were saying how it's been a great week for Louis Magstead, who's managed to get matches against the types of opponent that he wouldn't normally play. He lost a couple of close ones, won a couple of close ones, whereas in a normal situation, you lose one close one, you don't have a match for the rest of the week. So it's been really good for Louis, who's played really well this week. Beautiful ball striker, really talented player.
We learnt a little bit about Julian Cash ahead of this match, 24 years of age, from Brighton. Did get to a career high of 676 in 2020, but currently sitting just outside 1,200 in the world as the British number 40.
Yeah, he's had a couple of injury issues. He shot up the rankings early when he was young, probably when he was 19, 20. Had a pretty decent college career, flew up the world rankings, and then he had a couple of years where he could just never seem to be able to get himself injury-free. And I know it was a frustration for Julian and for his coach, Barry Fulcher. He's trained at a lovely training base. It's actually called the training base in Brighton, but it's a beautiful setting. It's in the middle of a forest. We went over there a couple of times with the players I used to coach, and a few more scenic tennis clubs in the country.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah, it really is, down in Brighton. That's a lovely little dirty slice from Julian there. Didn't bounce at all.
And clean holds from both to start things off and to
Yeah.
set out their stall in this playoff.
I think a couple of things we'll see. George won't back down. George will go for everything. He always does. Very flashy player. There'll be a lot of errors. There'll be a lot of winners. Julian can make those shots. Julian has a tendency sometimes that he can go a little bit into his shell and not let go on the shots. Tends to be on the backhand. He goes to the slice a little bit too early sometimes. Both these guys actually train at Loughborough as well, so they'll be well used to the pace of the court. Bit of a sniff early here for Julian. 2 sloppy errors from George. few of the guys in this week have actually been training at Loughborough since the start of the year, since with the COVID restriction, what have you, Loughborough is one of the places where you could train. So these two guys have been here all year. Henry Patton has been staying with his brother and training here most of the time. Billy Harris lives in Birmingham, so he was travelling over a few days. Luke Johnson, who I do a couple of weeks with, a fair bit of coaching with, he was down here as well for a couple of weeks. So it's almost been a bit of a home for these guys before the Pro Series.
And it was great that they had this facility that was open and COVID secure to train in.
Big shot. Yeah, I think the main reason it was COVID secure down here was the temperature. I don't think COVID could have lived with the temperature at the start of the year in the Loughborough indoor course. It was freezing.
It's definitely getting warmer, I've noticed, by week 3.
Yeah. The first week that we trained here, one of the heaters was broke, but it was just pumping out cold air. So it was like -1 outside, and the air vent was pumping in even colder air. It was probably the coldest I've ever been on a tennis court.
Does it make you work harder to stay warm?
The balls weren't bouncing. You don't really see these guys do whole sessions in tracksuits, but they were then.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot less layers from week 2 to week 3. It's a good hold for George Houghton from Love 30, so he's passed his first little test of this 3rd place playoff, and George Houghton leads on serve by 2 games to 1. Welcome back to finals day of week 3 of the UK Pro League. We have 8 weeks of group stages, all fighting out for a place to finish in the top 9. Those top 9 players will go through to finals week at the start of December. It's an opportunity to play matches. It's an opportunity to earn money. It's an opportunity for rivalries to develop, for friendships to be put to one side. And we have 2 men here who are good friends. But both eyeing up that 3rd place finish. For Julian Cash looking to go from 9th on his debut up to 3rd, and for George Houghton 6th, then 7th, and so both will get an increase on that. It will be a little bit more money, a few more points.
You always know when Julian's at his best when he's coming to the net. He's a really good volleyer, a really good transition player from the back court to the front of the court. When he gets a bit tight, you can just hold back.
If you're playing someone you've played so much and know so well, do you have to try and think of different things to do, or do you have to trust in your game?
Yeah, I don't think you'd try anything different unless they're beating you regularly. But I think with these two, I can't imagine they're anything other than 50-50 in practice sets and tie breaks and that kind of thing. So I think what they're probably doing is just trying to implement their game a little bit better than their opponents. It's difficult if you're playing against somebody you play on a regular basis and they're always beating you.
Because that has to get into your head.
Yeah. So even though we may not know as people watching it, if you've played, say, 10 practice sets and your opponent's won 9 of them in the last couple of weeks, then you're probably not going to be in such a great headspace. There's Julian's favourite shot. He said inside out forehand. His It's tough to see on the TV as well, but or even when you're watching from the balcony. But Julian hits a really heavy ball when the ball comes through, pushes his opponents back.
Both big golf fans, I believe, as well.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Be a good evening for them tonight then.
Yeah.
I was a big golf fan until I played a couple of times last week, and no, I'm not a fan of golf at all.
The first time you'd played?
No, since we came back. I have very much a love-hate relationship with the sport of golf, or my own playing of golf.
22 years of age, George Houghton, sitting at around 1,500 in the world, just inside the top 100 in terms of his British ranking. His combined ranking is just outside 100.
I think when the guy with these two guys in particular, and a few other guys in this tournament, their world rankings aren't really reflective of where they're at, because they've just not played enough tournaments, especially not in the last year. George has been at university, so he's not even played full time. I think he left uni, and I think he's playing full time now, but he won't have been able to get to any world ranking tournaments. So George definitely plays a lot better than what his ranking suggests, and Jules as well. I'd say Jules is well, he's been up at 650, so.
Yeah.
Got this fantastic loose arm on his forehand, George Houghton, has he? A little bit of Nick Kyrgios about it. So loose, so relaxed.
And something that you can't teach.
No. You can encourage it. You always want to encourage players to be more relaxed than they are. I think the match previous, Emily Appleton was just a little bit too much tension in her forehand arm. Interesting to see whether Julian, if he gets to break points, whether there's any layover from yesterday where he had so many break points, didn't he, in that first set, and then I think he had a few in the second set as well and just couldn't take any of them.
He had 11 in total across the match.
Yeah, it was 9 in the first set to Henry's 0, and Henry ended up taking it. Again, the joys of the tennis scoring system. He'd want to be making those returns. He's had his racket on both the last 2 returns and a couple of really easy errors. No compromise from George Houghton, is there? He's going to have a crack at that ball regardless of where it is. Not many players go shot for shot with Anton Matusovic, and George was pretty close to it last night, wasn't he?
Yeah, and as Jenny said pre-match afterwards, he was on a real high.
Yeah. Nice touch, yeah. I think what we'll see in this match is the player who gets the ball closest to the sideline first will become a huge favourite, because they're not guys to give up opportunities. Once one of them lands that first blow, if they can land it within a foot of the sideline, they're going to win the point 90% of the time.
Lovely touch.
Yeah, he's a really good volleyer, Julian. He probably doesn't get to the net as much as he could for somebody who volleys as well as he does.
Well, he had the 11 break points yesterday. He didn't convert. He's now got the first one of this third place playoff.
He's a big thinker as well as Julian. He's the kind of guy who I think that might weigh on his mind a little bit. He'll want to get one chalked off here. To Oklahoma State University. There was a lot of tension in that backhand, both of those backhands actually. It's a strange situation with Julian's backhand, because he's got a pretty good backhand, he just doesn't trust it himself.
How as a coach do you change that, or does it have to come from the player?
Well, he's had a very good coach. Barry Fulcher's one of the best coaches around, and they talk about it a lot, and I think Julian knows it, but it's a strange sport, isn't it? It plays on your mind, and you can have all the good intentions in the world that you're going to do this on your backhand, you're going to do this on second serve returns, and then it comes to it and you somehow manage to talk yourself out of it at the last minute. Again, though, I keep saying it, I think it comes down to just relaxing of the arms, taking the tension out of the body. And it's not something that happens all the time.
It's a very good hold from George Houghton, having to save the first break point of this match. So he stays ahead on score, 3-2. The final day of week 3, we already have our first winner of the day from our first final with Elise Maloney, winning week 3, defeating Emily Appleton 6-4, 6-3 in the final. She lost to Emily Appleton in the final of week 2, but did beat her on day 2 of week 3. So there's a really good rivalry developing within the UK Pro League for Emily Appleton and Elise Maloney. Still to come, Anton Matusevic and Henry Patton. And for the right here to finish 3rd in the table for week 3. I heard a story about Julian Cash that as a 14-year-old, his father let him drive his car. And the first time he took it out, he wrote it off and drove it into a tree.
That's.
But then, would you give your 14-year-old car keys?
Well, I could drive pretty young. My dad owned a car garage, so I could drive when I was pretty young. So.
As long as you learn from it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lovely volley. Lovely technique as well. Really got down to it, volleyed it at a high level. That's what we always want to aim for when we're volleying. You always know Julian's more relaxed, more comfortable in his game when he's coming to the net.
Oh.
He can stand where he wants there, the net or the baseline, that's going past.
It's a cracking return from Houghton.
The important thing when you're playing someone like George, when he does that, though, is to not get discouraged with it. You've almost got to give him, you've got to sort of go, I'll give you 10 winners per set.
Because you know that will happen.
Yeah. And if you get down about it, then it can start to stress you out a bit.
Slightly easier holding Julian Cash through these first 6 games.
Yeah, see, the last 2 points really summed George up in a nutshell. He just absolutely creamed a winner and then gone for another huge one and put it 8 foot wide.
I don't have any car writing off stories for George. I can tell you that the thing he can't live without is his dog Daisy.
Oh, really? Right, okay.
She's a poodle.
Oh.
Can't live without Daisy.
I think was that right saying he was British University champion? Yeah. That's a really good point from Julian there. Got him on a string. That's how it can really feel. It's a bit of a cliche to say, but that's how it can feel when Julian's playing well. He kind of has you on a string. He's moving you around the court, and he really can look a complete player if he's feeling confident.
Well, he came through first in Box A. He had 4 wins and 2 defeats, with 4 victories coming in the group stage. They play the 5 matches through Monday to Friday. The only defeat in the group stage was to Jack Draper, who unfortunately had to withdraw with an ab problem.
A couple of 30s so far, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's found it a little bit tougher on his serve. There was a clean hold to start with for George Houghton. And things have just got a little bit tighter with that 1 break point in the last service game to hold.
A little bit of strapping on his bicep there, George. I don't know if he's pulled something or if it's just precautionary.
He's probably defending all those Matušević shots yesterday.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Sent some reverberations through the arm.
Yeah, you can't do much against that. It's a really good second serve. The player always tends to think that you're going to second serve to the backhand, so that if you can hit a really good second serve to the forehand, it catches them out of position, and you're always going to get a good third ball on it. George is so good at cleaning up those third balls, those mid-court balls. He doesn't miss any of them. He's hit the spots really well on the 3 serves since he was love 30. There's no question which is George's stronger side. Forehand he can really let rip on. The backhand is a pretty solid shot, but he has a huge swing on it. You saw Julian there, he took it early, went big at it. George just couldn't prepare in time. He does get into these patterns, Julian, where I've seen this not taking a couple of break points in this one, and then last in the Pro Series last summer, he went on a terrible run of not winning a tie break. I think he lost about 7 in a row one week, or maybe 5 in a row, and then after losing 5 in a row, I think he then went on a run of winning 5 in a row. So we couldn't decide whether he was good at tie breaks or not. Just after I said George never misses those mid-court balls, he's gone and smoothed one long. That high backhand volley there is a nightmare shot to play, that one, because you feel that you should be favourite in the point, because it's a high volley, but it's tough to get any kind of purchase on it when it's on the backhand side.
It's quite an awkward shot.
Yeah, you can't do. You've got to place it bang on and away from your opponent. You can't generate any power with it. Also, the height it comes to you at, you're always sort of having questions whether it might just go long as well. All sorts of doubts in your mind when that shot comes. I don't think I've ever made one in my life.
I was going to say, it sounds like a shot to avoid.
Tim Henman was really good at it.
That's a loose second serve
Yeah.
from Houghton.
Kind of seemed to rush into that one as well. There wasn't much time between the first and second serve there.
He was trying to catch him off guard.
I think he's playing with Anton. Everyone's still playing at Anton's pace here. Gives you about 4 seconds between points.
Got a second break point of this contest. Second game running. George Houghton's under a little bit of pressure on serve. But can Julian Cash get rid of the break points from yesterday? It was 0 from 11 in his match yesterday. He was just getting harder and harder and harder, that forehand.
It was, but Julian tends, you see, just moving a little bit further back every time. He tends to let the ball come to him rather than going at it. Oh, it's a lovely touch. Don't see many low backhand passing shot volleys from behind the service line.
Well, he's been against it, but once again he has held at serve. We remain on serve deep in the first set. Houghton leads 1. Welcome back to our coverage of the UK Pro League. George Houghton, in your picture there, has survived a couple of break points against him in this first set. He did lose to his friend Julian Cash on day 2 of week 3. The scoreline that day was 6-4, 6-4. Now the chance for Julian Cash to step up and level up their set once again. As we mentioned, they practice a lot together. They know each other very, very well. 6th meeting between the two through all competitions. 4-1 in favour of the man in your picture.
Some serving from Julian at the minute. He's up 86% first serves. He's only missed 2 in 4 service games. Giving him the commentator's curse there,
Yeah,
didn't
you
they?
have.
Oh, that's a beautiful shot. It's a shot that's come into the game a lot more in the last even last year or so, I'd say, that sort of fade away, slice backhand volley. Just carve right across the back of the ball.
Again, it's been the difference between the two. When Cash has got himself forward.
Yeah. Georgian making no inroads into Julian's serve at all at the minute, is he? On 3 points when returning serve to Julian's 13. Big 10 minutes coming up here in this match, though. Unorthodox return there from Julian.
George Houghton says he prefers doubles to singles. Has more fun.
That's the mindset of a lot of the players, I think. I don't see him playing loads of doubles, though. Going after that one a bit there, wasn't he? More comfortable service game for Georgie. Served pretty well in it.
Looking for his first love hold since the first game of this match. And he gets it, and he needed it, and he's got it. And it will put the scoreboard pressure on Julian Cash. He's had a couple of opportunities with his break points. Now just simply looking at the scoreboard, yes, they're both on serve, and yes, Julian Cash has been holding comfortably, but the scoreboard reads 5-4 in favour of George Houghton.
Yeah, we're now at that stage where whoever gets slightly in the lead becomes the big favourite.
Because they always say that in tennis, there's just, you have so much time to think.
Yeah, the ball's only in play for about 10% of a whole tennis match, I think, so maybe not even that. So the rest of it is thinking about what's happened. And I was saying in the previous match that it's not what happens in a tennis match that's important, it's how you respond to it.
So now we're looking to see the response from Julian Cash, who has, you read out the numbers, been very comfortable on serve to this point.
Yeah, yeah. I think they'll both be pretty happy with how they've played so far, I would think. Neither of them can be too critical of themselves. I mean, Julian's had a couple of break points, but I'm not sure he had much chance actually in them, so you can't blame him. So they're not missed opportunities. You don't have any divine right to break just when you have a break point, especially not with guys who serve as well as George does. So it's just whether it plays on his mind from yesterday. There's nothing at all strange about having 2 break points and winning none of them. So it's whether he puts into it that it's 0 out of his last 13 that he's taken. But again, Henry Patton's a great server, though. It's not. There's no shame in not breaking Henry. Yeah, that's a lovely transition point there, turning defence into attack just by changing direction and getting in. It doesn't really make much difference that he ran forward because the ball didn't come back anyway, but he showed his intent that he is looking to get forward, which is where Julian is going to win the match if he can get to the net enough times. Different ways of returning the body serve there from both players. Julian went for the duck and racket over the head. George went for the shift the body out of the way.
First little bit signs of frustration we've seen though from Houghton, a few shakes of the head. Feels he should have done better.
Yeah, it's a strange mentality, isn't it, that the players have? Because to my mind there, George not really doing anything wrong. Julian's hitting first serves. Might be a bit frustrated at that one. Footwork wasn't great there. He planted himself early and just had a swing at it. It's a bit army. No body segmentation in it.
I felt that was just all his frustration coming out.
Yeah.
In that final hit. Julian Cash passes the first test of serving to stay in the first set. They locked together at 5 games all. They met in week 2. George Houghton would win 7-6, 6-4.
Lovely touch from George there. When he has time to attack that backhand, he can do damage on it. It's when you can rush him that he tends to not compromise and still go for the huge swing. There's that loose arm again. He doesn't have to do much with it. Julian might have just put him off a little bit there by running forward. I think he was semi-thinking about going deep line, but Julian would have cut that one off, so he changed his mind and went drop shot. A little bit of frustration there from Julian at the end.
Yeah, he's had a couple of comfortable holes now, George Houghton, as we go deep into this first set. The new balls will be called for, and there'll be another opportunity for Julian Cash to serve to stay in this first set, or we're going the distance to a tie-break.
He'll be used to those, Julian, won't he? He can't have any complaints about how he served the last couple of days. He's been impeccable on it, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. So, on points after 11 games, how do you see this? If this was a boxing contest and you were scoring it, who's got the edge for you?
I think you'd have to say a draw at the minute. There's just nothing in it. You know, a bit ago you'd have said maybe Julian, because he was making a few more inroads into George's serve, but not really. He's had, like we said, he had a couple of break points, but I think they came from a bit of sloppiness from George, and then he saved them pretty well. So you'd have to say it's a straight 50-50 at the minute. There's nothing in it.
And that's pretty much what you thought before the match started, that it would be as close as it is.
Yeah. You'd have, if you were going to pick one, you'd have to slightly favour George, just purely because he's ahead. He can have a sort of free game at this one, and as he will do, he plays freely anyway. He'll have a couple of swings at some shots, and they might just go in, and it might cause Julian problems. If Julian keeps serving like he has been doing, we're going to a tie-break.
Yeah, he held to love in his last service game.
He started off the same. It's often a good tactic to serve to the if somebody's got a big, loose, slappy forehand to serve there, because they tend to be expecting the backhand all the time. Take them a little bit by surprise. It's tough for George to do any damage from on the backhand from behind the baseline, and Julian will know that. If you can keep him in that sort of what we call a backhand cage, keep him back there 3-4 foot behind the baseline, he's not going to hit backhand winners on the regular. Whereas he can do on the forehand.
And this first set will be decided on the tie-break. Now, going into this 12th game, you said you would, if you had to pick one, it'd have to be George, because he was ahead on the scoreboard. They're completely level down. It feels a cruel question to ask, but where does this tie-break go?
I'd say slightly Julian. He served 85% first serve there. If he continues doing that, then it's going to be tough for George. But the flip side of that, if I'll caveat it, is that Julian has lost his last two tie breaks after being the dominant player in the set. So, if you
balanced that out well, didn't he?
If you want a winner from me, I'll say Julian slightly still.
Okay. This is our third place player. Still to come, Anton Matuzovic and Henry Patton in the men's final, and earlier today, Lise Maloney beat Emily Appleton in straight sets to win the women's final.
I think Julian should have been in there on the forehand. He got it high, a big, heavy forehand to George's backhand, which is one of his favourite shots, and he'd have got a put-away volley. As I was saying earlier, he's quite an analytical thinker. Julian Cash, so it wouldn't surprise me if he's thinking a bit about yesterday's match at the present stage. It's not taken that volley either. I've really cursed him here, haven't I, by picking him.
As you said, there might be thoughts from yesterday's semi-final.
Well, it's almost a carbon copy, isn't it? He's not, maybe from the second set. He's cruising through the service games, and he's in the return games. He's just not quite taking the opportunities. Yeah, benefit from a little bit of a miss hit, though. I'll say a little bit, a huge miss hit. Or one of the mini breaks back.
Good serving.
Yeah.
He's got a couple of wins in the group stage. George Houghton finished second in box B. He beat Alexis Cantor and Harry Wendelken. Defeats to Julian Cash, Billy Harris and Jack Findle-Hawkins. Then losing that very entertaining semi-final last night.
It's not often that you come second after losing more matches than you won. That's it.
That was a very, very tight group.
I think that can happen with the scoring system as well, where it's 2 points for a win in 3 sets and 3 for a straight set to win.
Yeah, you can still lose and pick up the odd point here and there if you can take it the distance.
Yeah, and there's very little between these guys either. Most matches are going to be close, either 2 close sets or champions tiebreak decider.
A little bit of extra work here to do Julian Cash because he's still a mini break down. As Calvin said, lost that tie-break match. 2 straight tie-breaks to Henry Patton in the semi-final yesterday. Had a couple of breakpoint opportunities in the main body of this first set.
Lost the tiebreak against Draper as well, didn't he?
Now Draper lost 6-2, 6-4.
Oh, was it right? Okay.
Yeah. His only other tie-break this week, he won a tie-break against Jack Findle-Hawkins on day 1.
Okay.
So he's got a good tie-break memory from week 3.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's a huge shot.
it's a delight.
Yeah. That's one of those balls as well that Julian won't be too disappointed to see George going for, because he probably, over the course of the match, he probably misses more of those than he makes, but you don't want to see him hitting the winner on 4-3 in the breaker.
Coming up to an hour on the match clock in this first set. Opportunities here for George Houghton to bring up set points.
Went for that one as well, just pushed through it a little bit, went for a little bit more pace and a bit less kick, and just caught the net. I think it thought twice about dribbling over for a net cord. Good decision from Julian. Brave. I think he knew there that at that stage of the tie-break, George was probably going to chip the return, get the ball. He's thinking, get the ball in, make Julian play. So smart, sort of second-guessing him there.
Opportunity now for Julian Cash to turn this tie-break around. It's love 3 down, an opportunity to bring up set point.
It's the kind of serve you want as well.
Yeah, his third ace of the match with its set point.
He's picked the line so often, hasn't he, in this set, on his serves. Really precise. Quick turnaround that from 5-4 up to 6-5 down for George. Interesting to see what Julian does here. Does he go after it? He didn't, but he's got it.
He has, he certainly has. He's come from behind in the tiebreak. He had a couple of opportunities in the main body of the set, but he's come through in this first set tiebreak. So Julian Cash takes it on the tiebreak 7-6. I'm delighted to say we can go courtside now and speak with Julian Cash. Julian, talk us through that first set. It was so close between the two of you. You had a couple of openings in the main body of the set, and then to come from behind to close it out in that tiebreak.
Yeah, a few memories from yesterday creeping in, but yeah, delighted I could find a way through it in the end. I mean, glad the set's over, to be honest, and now time to step up and see if we can create a bit more pressure in the second set.
Joseph Calv, you must have been pretty happy with the way you served in that set there. I think you only missed 3 first serves in the actual set before the tiebreak.
Oh, I didn't know that. But yeah, I mean, serving's been good all, well, especially the last 2-3 days. It's been a big strength, and it's definitely taking a lot of pressure off the set. But at the same time, letting too many break points slip at the moment. So got to knuckle down and make those opportunities count.
Yeah, anything, before we go back, Jules, any sort of one thing that you're really happy with and one thing you want to do better in this?
Serve +1 good, finding a lot of forehands, and then committing a little bit more on the second serve return, just trying to put a bit more pressure on him, get on the front foot earlier in the return games.
Okay.
How are you feeling physically? Because 7 matches in 7 days, it's quite a big ask.
Yeah, it's a fair few, but a lot better this week than the first, that's for sure. The body does adjust, but yeah, a few ibuprofen helping me along the way.
Well, Julian, thank you for talking to us, and good luck with the rest of the match.
Cheers, thanks a lot.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a natural and obvious wear and tear that you're going to get from this amount of matches.
Yeah, I think mentally as well, it's so tough that they're just, you feel like you're on the same 2 courts all the time. You're just spending your whole time just, even if you've had a close win or you've had a close loss or an easy win or an easy loss, you're back on the same. It becomes almost like a bit of a sort of routine, and some players adapt to it better than others do.
So what would you say if you could have a word with George Houghton now going into the second set?
I don't think he's done a whole lot wrong. You know, the way that George plays, you've got to say probably do the same. And you know, he was up in the tiebreak and he served a double fault. So if that second serve, he went for that second serve, and if he made it, the rate that he went for it, he's probably favourite. I think Jules was probably stepping in, and he wasn't a bad play. He went aggressive on it, and if he makes that, he probably forces Jules into an error, and he's 6-4, 2 set points up. So I wouldn't, if I was George, I wouldn't be changing a whole lot at the minute. He can play, and you know he's been pretty comfortable on serve after the first couple of games. So
interesting to see how Julian plays now, because he admitted straight off the bat that he was thinking about yesterday in his mind, and that did play a part. Now that's been banished, and he's crossed the line of the first set. Interesting to see if he relax a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And George as well, you know, he'll know what his game plan is. I think if he was going to do something a little bit more, he'd probably look to be a bit more aggressive towards Julian's backhand. But he has been. It's difficult when Julian's serving as well as he is. He's not getting the opportunity to direct the ball where he wants to.
It's lucky we stopped asking him questions so we could go for a bathroom break. Because that was just over an hour, that first set. And there was very little to choose between the two, and I imagine that the same will go for set number 2.
Yeah, it's an interesting start to the set as well, because Julian, he'll have a bit of a natural sort of release, a little bit of relaxation, and can he keep the level that he's had on his serve while he's just sort of relaxed a little bit?
Yeah, he talked about, let's just try and get this done. We're up and running in set 2. Don't forget, still to come, Anton Matusevic against Henry Patton, the men's final. Your winner today, Elise Maloney, who defeated Emily Appleton in the women's final earlier today, 6-4, 6-3. Runner-up in week 2, she crossed the finish line to be first in week 3. But another great week for Emily Appleton. 3 finals in 3 weeks. It's very aggressive of George Houghton to start things off, looking to try and make some inroads. If there is any kind of letdown from Julian Cash, George Houghton wants to be there to capitalise on it.
Be interesting to see if George can stick with his game plan, still keep going. I think he will still keep going for his shots after having a little bit disappointment there. Apart from the tie-break, he didn't actually play a bad tie-break. Apart from the double fault, sorry. Kept his serving level, hasn't he?
Yeah, that's proving to be very important for Julian Cash as he just gets himself up and running and off the wood and continues that momentum that's so important from taking that first set.
Yeah, it's a big game. Always a big game when you just won the first set on a tie break. Keep yourself ahead in the set.
They're the numbers that tell us the story, and we go straight to that first serve percentage, 84%.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. He's not going to have many sets where he hits 84%. You'd take 65% all day long, and especially when you're winning 85% of them as well. It's not like he's rolling them in.
And just those 2 breakpoint opportunities, one in the 5th game, then one in the 7th. So he's 0 from 13 over 2 days, but I'm sure that has been banished with the conclusion of the first set.
I always say as well that the player who has the highest percentage of second serve points won tends to win a match, and Julian's getting 80% there, so that's pretty tough on George. Cause it's tough for anybody to get 80% second serve points won.
We've seen at the next gen finals, they give the players tablets to look at the stats so they can see all those numbers. Do you think that's a good or a bad thing? If the players are sitting down there, how much would that knock a George Houghton to see the numbers his opponent's getting compared to his, or would it make no difference?
I think it depends on what they are. I think when you're a coach, I tend to do stats on the matches that the players I coach. Point, and there tends to be there's some stats that you want them to see, some that you think will help them. There's some stats that you don't want them to see, and there's some stats that are irrelevant, but they might read too much into them. So I wouldn't be over the moon about players seeing all the stats, or a player that I coach seeing all the stats mid-match. But sometimes it can help. So, for example, if you've got a player who's getting frustrated because they're not making many first serves, but then you tell them that they're winning 60% of points on their second serves anyway, then you can it can relax them and go, well, you don't need to make many first serves, you're doing all right, you're getting through the service games. But they may feel that they may get again frustrated because they think they should be hitting a first serve percentage of 65%.
Yeah, there's definitely such a thing as too much information.
Absolutely, yeah. And of course, it depends on the player. Some players are really analytical. They'll think about it, get into their heads, and other players will just look at it and think, all right, that's interesting, and forget about it 10 seconds later. But again, it's a funny old game, tennis. We're talking about how Julian served at 84% first serve and George was 30% lower than that, but they both held serve the exact same number of times in the first set. So did it really matter all that much? And in the tiebreak was decided because George missed the second serve and he missed the forehand at the end. So Julian's serve didn't really decide it in the end, but it's all we're talking about. Maybe we need less information, Gigi.
They're both off the mark in this second set. A set that George Houghton must win if he's to take this to a champions tiebreak. Third place up for grabs. £3,000 for the third place finisher and 12 points to go towards the league table where they want to finish in the top 9 if they want to make it through to finals week at the start of December.
Just relentless, Julian, at the minute, isn't he? I think one of the stats that I found players who I've worked with do like to pay attention to is we have this thing called momentum, which is 3 points in a row. So when you can convert 2 points to 3 points, and the player that wins the most number of 3 points in a row will generally win the match. So if they can focus on that in the match, it's something they can focus on without him affecting their game and trying to stop their opponent winning blocks of 3 points in a row.
That's quite a good way to keep that focus as well.
Yeah, and as well, especially like if you continue it over games, so you can win the last 2 on your service game and then win the first one on your opponent's.
It's a lovely touch about him, Julian.
Yeah, nice point, that one. Yeah, when Jules is relaxed, he's a tough opponent to play against. The drop shot's an interesting one. You think it's all about feel, but you see in that one, his racket head speed was pretty big. He just cuts across the ball really fast. Don't remember him losing a point at the net other than that high backhand volley he missed.
Comfortable hold for Julian Cash, who leads at this stage by a set and on serve by 2-1. Welcome back to the Dan Maskell Tennis Centre at Loughborough University, where there is just some retaping taking place with George Houghton. He did have tape in that position, and Calvin, we think it's simply a case of he's just getting it adjusted and redone.
Yeah, I think he was fiddling with it. I think when you're sweating, it can tend to move a little bit, or may have been in slightly the wrong place. He's just having it redone. It's definitely not been affecting how big he's hitting the ball. There's a lot of speed going through that arm, though, so there's probably a little bit of wear and tear at the end of a long week.
Just making sure everything is in the right. It's almost like it's holding his shoulder on.
Yeah.
He wants more.
Yeah.
Right, well, everything is in place that needs to be in place. Things are being kept up, kept on, and kept in. Just a little bit of extra protection because he hasn't looked hindered.
No, I don't think so. Probably a little bit of discomfort. Look, spray skin glue, that.
Spray skin glue. I mean,
Yeah.
that sounds horrendous.
Yeah.
Skin glue.
Just keeps those tapes in place a bit more when the arm's a bit sweaty.
Enjoy taking that off this evening with skin glue.
Yeah. They keep those things on for days, though. Those tapes.
Is that
Oh.
healthy? Shouldn't you be releasing muscles and bits and pieces?
No, I think when it's injured like that, they'll tend to keep the tape on for. I'm never a big fan. I don't really get what they do with the tape. I just think it just holds the skin, and like the muscle underneath, it just moves as normal. When I've had a couple of injuries, it's not had any effect at all. But a lot of players, they tend to be really into the taping now.
Kinesio tape. George Houghton, he's retaped up and ready to go. 1-2 down in the second.
I think one of the things, George, when we talk about what he can do better, a little bit more focus and determination at the start and the end of games. He's playing all right in the middle, but a couple of times when Julian's been 40 love up, he's just kind of like thrown a racket at one and already sort of like thrown the towel in on that game, and then a couple of sloppy errors at the start. There's another one. I don't think he makes those errors if it's 30 all. When you're a match player, you've got to play every single point. You can't be giving. So as we've seen there, what we've just seen there is that's a 3-pointer for Julian Cash. He won the last point of the last game, and he's won the first 3 of these. So that's another little bit of momentum for him. And although the points, the first set looked close, I don't know them offhand, but I'd be very surprised if Julian didn't win more blocks of 3 points in the first set than George did. Just because he was.
Very impressed if you'd kept a track on that.
I'd need my. It's actually easy to do. You just get pen and paper and mark them off, but it's pretty boring.
A couple of good service points here from George Houghton to pull things back to 30 all.
But that's what I was saying there, is the first 2 points really sloppy, and then he tightened up, played a couple of good points from there. If he could just have this level at the start of games and at the end of Julian's games. And within that 3-pointer, this is a big one now, because George has got an opportunity to get one, and Jules will now be looking to prevent that happening and set himself off on one himself. So the momentum's always going one way or the other. Big tennis from George Houghton. No compromise.
He's produced it when he's needed to. Love 30 down in this game. Game number 4, set 2.
Good rhythm on the racket, good body momentum.
The Good hold from George Houghton. A little bit of frustration, I'm sure, for Julian Cash. And George Houghton still not happy with his taping, but he holds serve.
That's one of the things I say I'm not keen on the taping. What the players always seem to be fiddling with it. They're never happy with it. So.
You see some that suddenly rip it off mid-match or after.
Maybe that's
a game.
before it just takes the attention away from the injury. It doesn't actually have any effect on the injury. You start thinking of the tape rather than the muscle that's underneath the tape.
Anything that can be a distraction.
Yeah. I doubt it's a major injury. It'd be a little niggle. I think all the players have generally always got a niggle, and especially at the back end of a seven-day match week. Again, another little sloppy return there from at the start of the game. Guys who are winning at this level, at the futures level, the world rankings, they don't give you free points at the start. They don't give up at 40-15, at 40 love down, that kind of thing. They win the first points. They win the later points. They don't just play the big points. I don't know what Julian was going for that.
This is the first time Houghton said 15:30 on the Cash serve, so it's an opening.
Really good second serve as well there, a decent return, but Julian was chasing the forehand a bit too much there. I don't think forehand was on.
George Houghton's got his first break points of this third place playoff.
First serves have gone down in this game, haven't they? I think he's 50% in this game. It's big.
He's taken his opportunity, George Houghton. First breakpoint opportunity that he has had of this match, and he's got the break. So it's Houghton who leads in this second set with the break by 3-2. Welcome back. It is week 3 of the UK Pro League, and the man in your picture there, George Houghton, has just made the breakthrough in this second set against Julian Cash. It seems to come from nowhere really, but it's Houghton who's walked through the door, taken that break point, and has the advantage in the second set.
Yeah, Julian will be looking for a quick response here. Trying to get one of the first 2 points, get himself in the game. He can't dwell on that. He's cruised through his service games and had one bad one. It's again though, this is where the stats are interesting. You can serve at 83% first serves But then if you have one game where you serve at 40% and lose that game, the other games don't matter at all. You really need to be around about 65% overall and 65% in each individual game. When George starts hitting backhand line winners, it's trouble for the opponent.
It's his favourite shot, and you can see why.
Yeah. I think Jules is going to have to commit a bit more to those backhand cross courts, to be honest. He can't just push them in like he's doing there. He's going to have to rip them a bit more. Both these guys can hit big forehands. I think we might find the backhand duels might well decide the match. He doesn't even look happy that he's hit a winner there, does he? Looks absolutely fuming there, hitting a forehand winner. He can't get down on himself. There's too much left in this match.
There's the consolidation, though, for George Houghton. And interesting to see how Julian Cash reacts now, because he's definitely got into a little bit of a slump.
Yeah, he can't be dwelling on it. This is one of the things that I think Jules knows as well that he can tend to do. Just dwell on things when they're going a little bit wrong. But once he can get himself out of that, then he'll find the results start coming a lot better. He needs to wipe the last 10 minutes out of his head and get back to what he's been doing all match.
This is his 14th UK Pro League match that he's played. He's won 7 to this point. Julian Cash.
Got to keep trying to come forward. If he's coming forward, he's going to end up winning the match. I'm pretty confident of that.
Says the thing he loves about tennis the most, Julian Cash, is that it's an individual sport.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like that, to be honest. Although a lot of guys like the team elements of tennis, the National Club League, UK Premier League, doubles, County Cup, that kind of thing. So.
Also a big fan of darts, plays darts every week.
Does he really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
At the pub with his friends.
I like a bit of darts as well. Didn't know that. Definitely a lull, isn't there? There's not enough in it to be having a lull. If you can get out of this game, still only one break, and he's had chances all match on George's serve.
Yeah, that's his first double fault of the match. His first serve percentage is at 67, remembering was up at 84% in the first set. Big point here at 30 all 2-4 down. What an opportunity now for George Houghton to get the double break and to put himself in a position to serve to take us to a champion's tiebreak.
Yeah. Big serve. He's coming in on it. That's a good sign for Julian. Wasn't holding back.
Forehand caused a lot of damage in that point from George Houghton. Gives him another opportunity here to get the double break.
Pressure on there. He made George hit a passing shot, which was good. Clear tactics. In the main, he's been pretty aggressive in the big points as Julian, which is what he needs to be more of.
Advantage, Cash.
Big Brighton fan as well as Julian.
It's a lovely stadium, Brighton Stadium.
Yeah. Pretty new, isn't it?
Yeah. A couple of double faults in this game. His first double faults of the match.
It's got really scrappy, hasn't it, the last 10 minutes? First set standard was really high, and it's, again though, this is what the matches at this level are decided upon. A lot of players focus on what their 10 out of 10 level is, what they can do when they're playing well, and that's largely irrelevant. Most matches at this level, or at any level really, are won by what you can do when you're playing your 6 out of 10. One of the things that Jack Draper's really good at, one of the best players in Britain at doing, is getting matches won when he's not playing as well as he'd hoped to. A lot of the guys who are ranked a bit lower down, they tend to get overly down on themselves where their shots are not really coming as they want.
Survives a couple of break points. Julian Cash, he is still a break down. But George Houghton still with work to do. He does have the break in this set, 4-3. Welcome back to the Dan Maskell Tennis Centre at Loughborough University. Very happy to have Calvin Betton alongside me. And you know most of these guys, all of these guys, pretty well.
Yeah, I know them all pretty well, to be fair. They've the sort of the area where I work in is round about where these guys, in terms of ranking areas, kind of where these guys are playing. So I've spent a lot of time on court with as practice partners for players that I've coached. They're a great bunch of lads. And again, you know, as we were saying on the last Pro Series, the levels, their top levels, isn't much different from guys who are ranked a lot higher. It's what they can do just when they're just a little bit off their game, which is what all these guys need to get a little bit better at. It's not a case of what we know what these guys can do. We've just seen Julian Cash, for example, serve at 83%, and he's cleaning lines, and that's what he can do, and that's going to win you points at any level of tennis. It's what they do regular rather than what they can do. It's done that. I think in men's tennis, where you've got decent servers on, one of the aims is just win one of the first 2 points and see where we are then, and then win one of the next 2 points. Just chip away. Bit of a sniff here now. So it can be often be difficult to play against George as well, because you can get no rhythm, because he's just gonna sort of cream a couple of winners, and there'll be a couple in the nets.
Well, you liken the looseness of Zalm to Nick Kyrgios, and I think he's one of the hardest people to commentate on, because there's absolutely no rhythm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But George wishes he had Nick Kyrgios' serve right here. See there, Julian's got to do a bit better there on the backhand. He's just rolling backhands into the middle of the court, and George that's right in George's wheelhouse. You can't just be pushing balls back and hoping that George is going to miss. If you want him to miss, if you're going to try and encourage George to make errors, you've got to move him round, try and hit those big shots when he's on the run. If he's just going to give him mid-court balls, that's going to get clubbed. Jules has got to find a better length. He's got to get behind that backhand a bit more. A little bit frustrated, isn't he? George he's such a sort of a pressure player as well. He can really put the pressure on you. It feels like he's hitting so big all the time. You've got to be sort of determined in your own mind to stay on top of the rally, try and get on top yourself. Otherwise you feel like you're always defending.
Big hole for George Houghton. Had a little sniff, a little opportunity, Julian Cash, but the door was slammed shut. And now he's serving, after he's taken a quick break, to stay in the second set at 3-5 down.
Yeah, we know where the energy is at the minute, don't we?
Yeah. If we didn't, we do now.
Yeah. I think it's a mental frustration, though, for Julian there. He knows what he should be doing, and he knows he's not executing what he needs to be doing at the minute as well as he'd hoped to. It's just a frustration. Couple of better points though there. Big first serves. Good ball after that. Jules said at the end of the first set he thought he was really good on his serve +1, which means your first shot after the serve, getting the players want to get the forehand on it.
Well, he's reset himself on his serve, Julian Cash, but maybe it's a little bit too late because it's George Houghton with the break. But he will ask the question of his good friend, if he wants the set, can he serve it out? Because he has got the advantage.
Yeah, that's just one there on the last point there. It may seem irrelevant, but I wouldn't be over the moon there with George. Just sort of throwing that last point away again. He was 40 love and sort of going for a throwaway drop shot. He's done a few of those in the match, and I'd always like to see the players push right to the last point. If he wins that one, it's 40-15, and we know Jules can get a bit frustrated.
And even if he would then still not break the serve and take the set, at least he was still fighting for that extra point.
He's just putting the pressure on all the time, making Julian think he's got to really work to hold serve. You've got to win 4 points to hold serve. And at the minute, Jules kind of thinks, if I win the first 3, I'm golden here in this game, because George is just going to throw one away.
An opportunity. They've split their meetings when they've met at the UK Pro League. I mentioned that Julian Cash won their encounter in straight sets this week, but now George Houghton with the opportunity, if he can hold serve here, to, well, firstly have a little chat with us, which will be lovely for him, and then to take part in a Champions tiebreak to see who will ultimately finish 3rd in week 3.
The 2 lads in the final will be keeping a close eye on this one. They could be on in 10 minutes, or they could be on in about 25, half an hour.
Yeah, that's Anton Matusevic and Henry Patton who will be contesting the men's final following this match, as we bring week 3 to a conclusion. Right, I think all the balls have been found. And that's George Houghton with the break, serving for the set at 5-4.
Love 50.
All important first point going against the serve.
Yeah, Jules has done the first job there. George will be looking to get a couple of big serves here, get himself a couple of those forehands that he likes to chop away at. Exactly what he did. Still feel that Jules is getting a little bit too down on himself. Can't be talking to himself like that at these stages. He's still 30-15. He's still right in this game. He needs to be fully focused on the goal of breaking back.
Set points to George Houghton to take us to a Champions tiebreak. Frustration clearly written across the face of Julian Cash as George Houghton now steps up with his first set point.
There we go.
He just needs the one. There it is. It's a set apiece. It's the first time they'll have gone to the distance in their UK Pro League meetings. But it is going to go to a champions tiebreak. George Houghton, 6-4 second set. I'm very happy to say that with headphones firmly on, we can cross courtside and speak to George Houghton. George, what was the most pleasing aspect for you in how you were able to turn things around and then take that second set?
I think mainly just hanging in it. Like, first set and a half, I didn't really feel like I had any chances. Julian was serving well. I don't think I was returning great, but he was taking care of that side pretty well, and I saved quite a few break points. So probably most happy that I managed to hang around and then find a solid couple of return games in there to get the break and take my chance.
George, Calvin, what do you think they're gonna? What do you think the determining factors of this tiebreak is going to be? What sort of things would you want to do and want to avoid?
I think I'm going to be looking to play positive. Like, I think we both like taking the game to our opponent, so I feel like if one's passive, it's more likely to be a negative effect on us. I think we'll both look to be aggressive, and that'll probably the person who's bravest look to go after it will probably come out the winner, I'd imagine.
Okay, George. Cool. Good luck, mate.
Cheers, guys.
So it all comes down to this. It's a champions tiebreak to decide. You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you which way you're going to go on this one.
I think George might nudge this one now, slightly. There's so little in it, though. I mean, there's been one break a serve, and they've both had sniffs on each other's serves all match, and nothing really major. Julian has played that one sloppy game, so it just feels like Julian might be getting a little bit down on himself, and that may be overtaking how clear his mind can be.
As George said, he was really pleased with the fact that he hung on in there, and he wasn't getting opportunities, but he just hung on in there until eventually he did.
Yeah, George is a really positive guy in general, sort of has a positive outlook on everything, so I think it's important at the start. I think Julian really needs to get to sort of 2-2 3 on level terms at least.
Now for Julian, this is the first champions tiebreak he's played this week. For George, it's his fourth, and he won one of them, and that was on day 5 when he beat Harry Wendelken 10-7. But he lost one to Jack Finnell-Hawkins, and he lost one to Billy Harris on day 1.
I think George is a bit frustrated there. I think that first serve was out and he didn't call it. He was hoping for a bit of a lifeline from the umpire, but he wasn't going to give him it. A couple of gifts there.
He still doesn't look particularly happy.
He doesn't, does he? No. This is the sort of thing where I was talking about, though, in the last set, how he's still focusing on what's happened 10 minutes ago, despite him being 2-love up in the tiebreak. So what happened 10 minutes ago is absolutely irrelevant. All that matters now is what's going to happen in the next point, and then the next point after that. Sloppy start to the tiebreak from both players, actually. Not what any of them would have wanted. That's a good decision, though, from Julian. That's a bit of clarity in his mind. Good service points there. Mixed it up well as well. Didn't give George a rhythm. Went backhand first, then forehand on the second one. I said he'd hoped to get to 2-all, 3-all about that stage. He's 4-1 up, so. George is gifting him it at the minute.
Cash.
Yeah, you can see the frustration in George Houghton because there's an awful lot of work to do. 1-5 down, first to 10. I think Julian Cash forgot that we're changing now, but off we go. Towels collected. Changes to be done. Following this, we'll have Anton Matusevic against Henry Patton in the men's final. So do stay with us for that as we look to complete and conclude week 3 of the UK Pro League. So Julian Cash, British number 40 in the driving seat now of this Champions tiebreak. Older of the two by a couple of years at 24.
A little bit of hesitation there. Kind of shaped his body up like he was going to go cross court and then changed his mind right at the end. Never looked fully confident in that one. Huge opportunity now for Julian. Basically serve semi-decent, and I think he's got this one in the bag.
Just the 2 defeats for Julian Cash this week. To Jack Draper at the group stage, to Henry Patton in the semi-final. For his 5th win of the week. In week 3 and his highest placing so far.
Ooh. Well, they both did their best to give their opponent the point there. George just did a little better at that and gave Julian the point. Again, though, I can't remember him losing many points at the net. When he's been to the net, he's generally been exceptional. Really scrappy tiebreak, hasn't it, so far? Jules had a couple of good service points, but other than that, both players missing and missing early and missing balls that they wouldn't expect to be missing. Missed it. Brave from George. Got the volley just deep enough to put it a little bit out of Julian's reach. I think Julian probably would have been a bit frustrated he didn't make him play a volley or get the ball, get the passing shot in. He gave him a sniff there.
He fights on. George Houghton still got work to do. but he's clawing it back gradually.
Yeah, this is, it seems strange to say, but this is a big point here. If Julian wins it, then you think it's probably a bit too much for George to do. If we get 7-5, he's still very much in the balance. It's a big momentum point, this one.
Again, this one is coming up to the
Yeah,
net.
good decision again, brave.
He'll take his time, but he's still got a point here to see if he can bring up some match points. Two men, good friends, on court, off court. They'll probably be back practicing together very soon.
Yeah, I expect they'll be on tomorrow. Probably playing another Champions tiebreak at the end of a session. It's a strange situation here for George now, because his natural game is to just go for his shots and be free and go for any half chances. But the inclination at this stage is make the opponent play some balls and see where we can get to. But it's which camp he's going to put his intentions into. There's rarely any compromise with George. I think he's just going to probably go for his shots. Try and whip together 2 or 3 winners in a row and get somewhere close and put the pressure on. Good hands.
Yeah, he didn't need to play the ball when he came forward. The job was done from the back of the court, and now it's match points for Julian Cash. Match point, Julian Cash. And there it is. It's a disappointing end for George Houghton. They both will get the highest finishing in the UK Pro League so far, but it's Julian Cash. A sigh of relief, I think, from Julian Cash after how the second set went. They tap rackets, the good friends at the net, but it's a relieved Julian Cash that finishes third in week 3 with a cheque for £3,000 and 12 points going towards finals week at the beginning of December. It was nip and tuck, it was tight, Calvin Benton, from start to finish, but it's Julian Cash who crosses the finish line 7-6, 4-6, and then taking the champions tiebreak.
Yeah, I think you've summed up the emotion entirely right there. It was relief from him at the end. There wasn't any sort of outpouring of joy or anything, was there? He looks like he's just happy to have finished. But yeah, he served really well, volleyed really well. That's the thing. I think when Julian comes forward, as we say, and when he's aggressive, when he's upbeat, when his tempo's right, when he's moving up the court, getting to the net, he's a very tough player to beat. He's a quality player. It's just keeping that intention all the time that will determine where he goes in the game from here.
The positives for both of them is that they are progressing in terms of week by week. They're going further up. For George Houghton, he was 6th, 7th. He's finishing at 4th, and for Julian Cash, he didn't compete in the first week, made his debut in week 2. That was 9th, and he has finished 3rd, and now he's speaking with Marcus Buckland.
Congratulations. The commentator suggesting there was an element of relief in your expression when you finally closed that match out. Is that a fair observation?
Yeah, it's been a long couple of days. Feels like a few missed opportunities, so yeah, just delighted to get through it. A bit of fatigue set in after Calvin mentioned it on the changeover. I started realising I was maybe a bit more tired than I thought, but yeah, delighted to get through it in the end.
Yeah, you must never listen to what Calvin has to say.
I know, he mentioned the serve as well, and then I started missing a few, so...
We knew it was going to be tight, and it was up until the tiebreak. What eventually swung it your way, do you feel?
I mean, I started returning a little bit better. Just changed my position, started giving myself a bit more time, and just got me in a few more points from there. And George made a few errors in that breaker, which kind of took a bit of the pressure off me as well.
We know you two are very good friends. Does that make it that much harder to compete for such an important set of things? You've got prize money and you've got points at stake here today, of course.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, we train together pretty much every day, so not only friends, but we know each other's games inside and out, which, yeah, definitely adds another element. But, I mean, we've played quite a lot since the first lockdown, and I guess, you know, you get used to it, put the game face on and just kind of crack on with it.
And when you reflect over the past few days, 5 wins, 2 close defeats against high-quality performers, how pleased are you with the way you've performed, and what are you looking to do next?
Yeah, well, it's been a really good week for me. Improved on a lot of things that I wanted to from my first week, so delighted with that. Obviously nice to finish the week with a win as well. And yeah, I'll be back here in 2 weeks' time to play the 4th week, and then hopefully get on the road in the summer if some of the restrictions ease a little bit.
Yeah, fingers crossed for that, and congratulations today. We look forward to seeing you again in week 4.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Good stuff from Julian. Jenny is poised with intent, as she always is. Pretty much went as we expected, at least until the tie break, when, as Julian said, he got a little bit of help from his opponent.
Yeah, we knew it was going to be a big battle out there. We knew it was going to be a case of big serving, and certainly that's what happened the whole of the first set as well. Houghton did really well to come back in the second set because he led in the tiebreak too. So a really good performance for both guys. I'm sure Houghton's a little bit disappointed, but certainly it's the best place finish for both of them this week, so a lot to be positive about.
Yeah, that first set was so very tight, and we picked up a couple of points right at the end of it, which of course swung things decisively in favour of Julian Cash, who's got the serve, and he made that count, and then a point later he was able to take advantage. But we knew, we certainly expected, and we were proved right, that it was going to be as close as this early on.
Absolutely. I mean, Houghton led the tie-break 3-love and 4-2, but credit to Cash here, because given the fact he lost his semi-final match, both sets in tie-breaks, he dug in so deep, he showed his fighting spirit, and great performance from him. But then again, Houghton coming back here at 2-all, he got that all-important break of serve, playing some blistering tennis. Look at the power on that forehand, pushing Cash so far back behind the baseline. It was a great response from him.
And a really good response then from Cash at 2-1 in the tiebreak.
Yeah, it was indeed. It's tough at this point. It's so much of it's down to the mental side, and Cash really just coming out on top. Houghton missing a couple of easy balls in the tie-break, which really did cost him, but credit to Cash. I mean, he really showed some character out there.
Yeah, disappointing final point, of course, for George Houghton. But, as Jenny mentioned, it's been a really good week for him. His best finish, Julian's best finish too, and as he said, he's going to be back in just a couple of weeks' time for week 4. We're going to be back in just a couple of minutes for the men's final. It's Anton Matusevic up against Henry Patton. So we'll see you very shortly.